Break down Thanksgiving do's and don'ts. They also talk to a real live turkey expert. But first, a subcommittee chairman of the powerful House Oversight Committee hinting to Fox News tonight that there may be new evidence that the Clinton Foundation is involved in illegal activity. Congressman Mark Meadows setting a December 5th hearing on the Hill to see where the Justice Department stands in the Clinton Foundation in pay-to-play allegations, and says there may be some whistleblowers willing to testify as well. Fox chief intelligence reporter Catherine Herridge is here, and she's got the story.
Lisa, tonight House Republicans are trying to finish off some of their investigative work before they lose control of House committees, including the Clintons and their controversial charity.
Why don't you give back the money? I think it would be a great gesture.
On the campaign trail, candidate Trump had harsh words for the Clinton Foundation.
It's a criminal enterprise. Saudi Arabia giving $25 million, Qatar, all of these countries.
Writing to Congress last spring, then Attorney General Jeff Sessions tapped a Utah federal prosecutor, John Huber, to probe the foundation, which took tens of millions of dollars from foreign interests while Clinton was Secretary of State under President Obama. While the foundation set up by Clinton and her husband has consistently denied wrongdoing, House Republicans are now calling for Huber to testify about his findings. In a phone interview, Congressman Mark Meadows said the hearing will be public.
On December 5th, the Subcommittee on Government Operations will be holding a hearing where we'll request Mr. Huber or his designee to come in and testify, along with potentially a couple of whistleblowers based on previous conversations with the Department of Justice weeks ago. They had indicated that Mr. Huber was making good progress.
Meadows, chairman of the Freedom Caucus, said congressional investigators also have new records about the foundation's work.
There's at least a question of impropriety as it relates to the Clinton foundations, whether it's quid pro quo, whether it's improper use of charitable giving.
Along with the foundation, Huber is investigating allegations of surveillance warrant abuses targeting Trump campaign aide Carter Page. The Justice Department Inspector General is also investigating alleged surveillance abuses, as well as media leaks by the DOJ and FBI to include former FBI Director James Comey and his memos about his meetings with the president.
Fox News reached out to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Utah and the Clinton Foundation, but there was no immediate response. With less than 6 weeks before the Democrats take over the House, the Huber testimony may be the last chance for Republicans to get foundation evidence into the congressional record. Lisa?
Thank you, Catherine. And joining me now is Corey Lewandowski, Trump's 2016 campaign manager and co-author of the new book, Trump's Enemies, out next Tuesday. And Antoine Seawright, former senior advisor to the Hillary Clinton campaign in South Carolina and the CEO of Blueprint Strategy. Thank you both for being with me tonight.
Hello, Lisa.
So, Antoine, I want to start with you. Hi, Corey. I want to start with you, Antoine. If there's potentially new information here, it's Oversight Committee's job is to investigate. Why wouldn't they look into it?
Well, Lisa, this is a prime example of why the Republicans lost control of the Congress just a few weeks ago on Tuesday, November 6th. They have investigated themselves into the minority. Here we are once again wasting taxpayers' dollars on something that does not exist. They spent so much time focusing on Hillary Clinton that they have not spent time putting forth a policy agenda that will move this country forward, and the voters responded the way they did on Tuesday night.
Well, Corey, what do you make of what Antoine just said? I mean, isn't it the Oversight Committee's job to conduct oversight?
Well, look, of course, Lisa, and if new information is available, Mark Meadows and the committee have an obligation to the American taxpayers and to the Constitution to do their job to investigate wherever that may lead. So let's be very clear. We all know that the Clinton Foundation was not on the up and up. My only disappointment was that the Congress has taken this long to continue the investigation, that it wasn't done for the Justice Department prior to now. There is no way that the individuals or those countries from overseas that gave tens of millions of dollars for access to the Clinton Foundation, either when she was the Secretary of State or after, were doing so out of the goodwill, because what you've seen now is that the Clinton Foundation is not receiving those types of donations anymore. So clearly it was a pay-to-play scam, and now there should be a much larger investigation to bring it to light, because the Clintons have always operated. It's one set of rules for everyone else and a different set of rules for them.
Corey,
that's the truth.
Corey, you just swallowed the biggest...
Antoine, hold on. I want to ask you that. I want to follow up on what Corey just said. If we've seen a drop-off in donations. If donations weren't meant to get access to Hillary Clinton, why the drop-off?
That just means perhaps people have moved on, and maybe the Clintons have moved on in courting those donors. Corey just swallowed the biggest pill of hypocrisy I've ever seen. Now, here we have the president and the Republican majority trying to strike fear in the American people about investigation after investigation if the Democrats take over the Congress. And now you're saying here tonight, Corey, that it's okay. The Congress has a responsibility to investigate. So which one is it? You can't have your cake and eat it too, my friend. We know that this is their last political straw by the Republicans to drive a wedge into the real issues in this country and separate Democrats from Republicans, and that's what this is all about.
Well,
it's
Antoine,
not.
I'm pretty sure
Congress has an obligation to investigate, and they should investigate Clinton and Comey and McCabe and Jim Baker, who was the general counsel.
Hold on, Antoine.
Let's go into the email system.
Let's do it.
Right?
Antoine, hold on.
Ivanka Trump did not bleach bit 33,000 emails on a private server or have classified emails on her own server and say, whoops, I didn't know as a Secretary of State or as a former U.S. Senator that I can't store classified information on my own private server. She never did that.
Cool.
So let's go and investigate Hillary Clinton for putting out classified information onto Huma Abedin's server, of which her ex-husband had access to. The FBI knew about it and didn't prosecute any of them, but actually gave them leniency because they claimed that attorney-client privilege between them all. Shara Mills, Huma Abedin, and Hillary Clinton. You should read the book. All the information's in there.
Antoine, does none of this concern you at all? I mean, you look at it, one of the things that we know the DOJ is looking into, potential pay to play. You look at things like the Associated Press reported about Clinton donors getting access to Hillary Clinton with meetings. You know that Bahrain Prince went to the Clinton Foundation to try to get access to Hillary Clinton when he couldn't get to her via the State Department. You look at things like the International Business Times reporting that arms sales increased to Clinton Foundation donors. How does none of this concern you?
Lisa, what you and Corey and I both know, all three of us know, is that if there was an inch of wrongdoing by the Clintons, it would have been headline front and center all the way through every news outlet you can imagine in this country. And the investigation would have been the top front and center of this network and every other right-wing network you can imagine. You and I both know that. There is no there, and I think we're going to find this out. And this is just the last straw by the Republicans who are going to make their way to the majority next year to try to raise an issue where there's no issue.
Well, Corey, we don't know that yet, do we? I mean, the DOJ is looking into this. We actually don't have those answers.
Trump's
if there was illegal
DOJ, Lisa, would have settled this by now.
That took place. Well, they're looking into it, Antoine. Corey?
We don't know what the bottom line is, but what we do know is that the Inspector General is still looking at the crooked members of the FBI, whether that's Comey or McCabe, who was fired, or Page or Strzok. Look, that's a fact. The IG is looking into those people. The deputy director of the FBI has been referred to a criminal referral for lying under oath on 3 separate occasions. We know that they were part of the Clinton team, that Bruce Orr and Nellie Orr, who was his wife, was part of Fusion GPS. They're all tied to the Clinton cabal, and we're going to find out once and for all what they did to try and subvert the will of the American people, and if they were involved in any way, shape, or form in falsifying a FISA application to spy on American citizens. Because if Donald Trump wasn't elected, we wouldn't know anything about those things.
Corey,
Antoine, real quick.
Corey, bless your heart. You've done a good job of repeating the facts.
Antoine, you bless your heart. I know this from you.
You've done a good job. Good job of repeating talking points, but you know, and I know that that's a different set of reality, and that's fact. That's fiction, not fact.
All right. Well, we're going to
I say happy Thanksgiving. It's a good fact.
Happy Thanksgiving to you too, my friend.
Happy Thanksgiving to you both. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you joining me tonight. All right. Well, we are also learning more tonight about what Special Counsel Robert Mueller asked in that list of questions to President Trump and what they could indicate about the status of the Russia investigation. Kevin Cork is with the president tonight in Palm Beach with the story. Kevin?
Evening, Lisa. Now we wait. That is the White House's feeling as they await the special counsel's next move in the ongoing Russia probe, hoping obviously that sooner than later this will all come to a head. As you know, the president submitted answers to a number of questions issued by the Mueller team yesterday. Among them, we have learned, according to Axios, questions about his knowledge of the infamous Trump Tower meeting involving Donald Trump Jr. A classic what did he know and when did he know it scenario that obviously can trip you up. You have to play that one straight down the middle. There was also at least one question, by the way, we are told, Lisa, about Russian hacking after the president made let's just call it a quip about getting the Russians to look for Secretary Hillary Clinton's missing emails during the campaign. Also, we have learned that White House counsel Don McGahn implored the president to not pressure the Department of Justice to investigate Secretary Clinton and James Comey because it might be seen as obstructing justice during the ongoing Russia probe, which the president says quite forcefully he did not do, nor did he collude with the Kremlin, about which Rudy Giuliani told Axios, I don't think they, speaking of the Mueller team, have any evidence of collusion of any kind. I think their obstruction case, as a legal matter, doesn't exist. Clearly a very strong opinion and a very strong argument made by the former mayor of New York City, but clearly his opinion, Lisa, is not the one that matters the most. That distinction belongs, of course, to the special counsel himself, Robert Mueller. Lisa?
Thank you, Kevin. You always do such a great job breaking these things down. All right, well, joining me right now is Wisconsin Republican Congressman Sean Duffy and former prosecutor for the DOJ, Jim Trusty. Jim, I'm going to start with you. So you believe that the questions are actually a win for President Trump and potentially show that there's not a serious direct threat to the president. Why do you say that?
Well, look, I've been involved in criminal prosecution or criminal defense for a long time. And if your client is told that they have a take-home exam, that's a great moment. I mean, ask any college kid, would you rather have a take-home exam or the one in the class? They're usually going to want the take-home. This is one where he can huddle up with his lawyers, come up with some answers, not worry too much about it. I can't imagine anybody's going to let that piece of paper go back to Mueller with any sort of, glaring confessions on it, and basically be done. Bang the gong. No cross-examination, no real follow-up. It's a pretty simple task.
Well, and Congressman, let's talk about that. So we've got. What do you make of these Mueller questions? Apparently, the two main focuses that Kevin laid out are the DNC hacking as well as the Trump Tower meeting. Do you see any legal liability for President Trump with those?
I don't. The president's been very clear he hasn't included with Russia. I've always said President Trump had a hard enough time including with the Republican Party in the primary, let alone including with Russia. And I find it rich that we're going through an investigation right now on Donald Trump, including with Russia. You and I both know this, Lisa, and your viewers know this, that this whole investigation started based on the dirty Hillary Clinton dossier where she actually colluded through Fusion GPS with none other than Russians that started this whole investigation. And so I think Donald Trump, he ran a great campaign. He campaigned in places like Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania and won them. And now the remnants of the Hillary Clinton campaign and the dirty dossier are coming to bear by way of the Mueller investigation. Donald Trump is not going to set himself up for a perjury trap and is going to answer the questions truthfully in regard to the questions that were submitted to him by the Mueller team.
Well, Jim, speaking of Hillary Clinton, so Michael Flynn sentencing is coming up here. Do you see inconsistencies in the way that Michael Flynn has been treated and the way that the Hillary Clinton team was treated?
Well, it's kind of broader than just Flynn. But if you remember from the Inspector General report and some of the information that came out about the Hillary Clinton probe, it became very clear that Comey was very much overtly describing this prosecution, or investigation, I should say, as one where they were not going to use false statement charges against any of the potential witnesses or targets. They swore it off and said, I think in front of a number of FBI personnel, he made the comment about, we're not going to waste our time with these low-hanging fruit prosecutions for false statement. What's happened in the Trump investigation is the polar opposite of that. And I find that really kind of intriguing, like who makes these decisions about how to enforce 1001, the false statement statute. In the Trump investigation, there's been false statement prosecutions left and right. It seems to be the coin of the realm. And so the inconsistency in the approach is one that I think has to get some scrutiny from somewhere.
So what does that tell you about the Mueller investigation?
Well, it tells me that the Mueller investigation is taking the Trump aspect incredibly seriously, that they would use every tool at their disposal to try to get down to the bottom line. In the abstract, there's nothing wrong with that concept of really investigating hard and using your legal tools. But the comparison is one where I think people can have fair questions.
So, Congressman, Rudy Giuliani laid out all the information that they've given to the Mueller team. I think it was something like 30 witnesses, 1.4 million pages of documents. Also submitting these written questions. There's been talk about tying a Mueller protection bill to a spending bill in Congress. Does this get rid of that idea now that President Trump has been a full participant in this?
Well, first of all, I don't think that's going to be necessary because I think as Republicans, we understand that President Trump didn't actually collude with Russia. He's innocent of the allegations that Hillary Clinton has made against him. And if you impede the Mueller investigation, what's going to happen is there'll always be a cloud over the president, and it'll affect his 2020 prospects. You want him to be exonerated, and that means you got to let the investigation roll forward. But to James's point also, Lisa, I think if you look at prosecutors, you look at the DOJ, they have partisan positions. They're not unbiased individuals. Everyone has a view on Donald Trump, and their position on Hillary Clinton was, we don't really want to investigate her. We actually favor her over Donald Trump. And then you take the Donald Trump investigation, and they are putting the screws to him, not to find out what role Russia had in the American election, but they're trying to actually prosecute Donald Trump himself, which is a far cry from the original charge that the Mueller investigation had, which is to say, what did Russia do, what influence did they have, and who did they partner with? This is an attack group that's going to try to take down a president and undo the will of the American people from the 2016 election.
Is the scope too big for Robert Mueller?
Well, I don't totally accept what was just said. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of room for questions about how these investigations got handled, Agent Stroke's role. Some of the communications are just devastating in terms of being politically oriented. But at the end of the day, I don't have a complete loss of faith in Mueller in terms of his integrity. It is a case or an investigation that's been monitored closely by Rod Rosenstein. I think he's an honorable guy. So I think at this point, we have to wait for the finish line to see what comes out before we announce that it's an attack dog going after everybody.
But hold on. But if I could, Lisa, I mean, what I think is important to note is if you want to have a fair and impartial investigation, you shouldn't build a team of Hillary Clinton and DNC donors. There's a lot of investigators, there's a lot of prosecutors who don't give money to Republicans or Democrats. Mr. Mueller actually put a team together of left-wingers who've given money to Democrats. So there's no doubt an era of partisanship in this investigation where Mueller could have taken a different track where there's great prosecutors, great investigators who don't give any money to either party. And if he had done that, we would have far more faith in the investigation. But though some say Mueller's a Republican, the era of this team seems to be left-leaning and anti-Trump.
So, Jim, real quick, we don't have a lot of time. Is this winding down anytime soon, the Mueller investigation?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the whole situation with the president feels a little bit like checking a box. Like, let's get this information, get him committed, not cross-examine him and move on, and never change his status as a subject rather than a target. The fact that they're going to sentencing in a couple of weeks on Flynn tells me they're basically done with any cooperation from him, and they've let some people kind of attrit out of the team. So I think that all adds up to something where we're, finally at an end game.
I think a lot of people have their fingers crossed on that.
That would be
nice. Yeah. Thank you both so much for joining me tonight,
Lisa.
and a happy Thanksgiving.
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you. Up next, they did it in Guatemala. Now we're hearing that massive migrant caravan may be planning to stampede our southern border. And thanks to the Ninth Circuit Court, they'll get asylum. Fox's Kristen Fisher is here with all the latest. Kristen, what's going on? What do we need to know?
Well, Lisa, Defense Secretary Jim Mattis says that the White House has just given him explicit authority to use military troops to protect Customs and Border Patrol personnel, and that includes with lethal force if necessary. But the secretary also insists that those troops will not have firearms, only things like batons and shields. Here's the direct quote of how the secretary explained the Pentagon's expanded powers today. He says, quote, if someone's beating on a Border Patrolman, and if we were in a position to have to do something about it, we could stop them from beating on them and take them over and deliver them to a patrolman who would then arrest them for it. So Secretary Mattis is going to great lengths to say that the U.S. military still does not have arrest authority, nor are they doing any law enforcement at the border. So far, the mission for the nearly 6,000 active duty troops has mainly been putting up barbed wire and other barriers along the border and to transport Border Patrol personnel as this caravan of migrants continues to head north. Now, the founder of the aid group Angels Without Borders is telling the Telemundo station in San Diego that he believes thousands could try to make that jump over the border. And a councilman in Tijuana told Telemundo that that would be an immediate provocation to the United States. Meanwhile, President Trump is continuing to claim that, quote, there are a lot of criminals in the caravan. We will stop them, catch and detain. Judicial activism by people who know nothing about security and the safety of our citizens is putting our country in great danger. No good. As of now, Lisa, more than 3,000 migrants have reached the border city of Tijuana in Mexico. Lisa.
Thank you, Kristen. Appreciate it. All right. Well, joining me now with reaction is Ann Coulter, conservative commentator and author of Resistance is Futile. Also with me is Alan Orr, immigration and civil rights attorney. Ann, I want to start with you. What recourse does the Trump administration have in dealing with migrants that are illegally crossing the border while trying to seek asylum?
Well, I think maybe having firearms would be helpful. That was hilarious. What, they're like British cops? They don't have guns? Do our troops on the DMZ have firearms? This is a little more important than protecting South Korea, as important as that is. It's our country. I mean, there are a lot of things Trump could do if he has to, if he's not going to build a wall, which apparently he isn't. He could go a few yards into Mexico, have an emergency military action there. But I don't think it's going to help with billy clubs.
Well, so, Alan, So Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen said yesterday that there are 500 criminals involved or in the mix of the migrants as well as gang members. I want to play some sound for you for former ICE Director Tom Homan and get your thoughts on it. Take a listen.
I was called a fearmonger, but you know what? Unfortunately, I was right. Now we're going to talk more caravans come, enter illegally, put themselves in the hands of criminal organizations. We're going to bankroll smuggling organizations. We bankroll drug cartels who control the corridors heading to the border. And these people are put at risk. Women will be raped. People will die crossing the border. Children will drown. People will be misused by these criminal organizations. We've seen over and over again last year and a half how many people have died at the hands of these criminals.
So, Alan, to Mr. Homan's point, as well as what Secretary Nielsen laid out, aren't there real national security concerns and, defense concerns at the southern border right now?
No, I don't think there's any more concerns than there are at any other border, right? Every day, hundreds of thousands of individuals apply to enter this country. And specifically at the Tijuana port, at least 100,000 individuals apply every day. So an extra 2,000 or 4,000 for the United States to sort to see if they are available for entry or should be turned away should not be a problem for the United States. So therefore, this whole thing is basically theater, political theater, because the caravan has been coming for years. And Ann has actually also said that on the show. And this is the first time that we've ever deployed. Actually, we have the National Guard and the troops at the border for such a small number of people.
But he's not the first president to send troops to the border. President Obama did that. President George W. Bush, President H.W. Bush. He's certainly not the first president to do that. That's not
to send to the border for at this level and this number and at this magnitude to address individuals who are coming here, which I don't even call them the caravan. I call them survivors because they're sort of fleeing for their lives. So to meet people who are fleeing for their lives with guns instead of welcoming them and using the American laws that we've all agreed on for Congress to let them allow to apply for asylum, that's not very American.
Well, and it's not just President Trump and Republicans that have concerns with what's going on at the southern border. You even have the Tijuana mayor wearing a hat saying, make Tijuana great again. You have Mexican protesters out there saying this is our country and having concerns with what's happening. So what do you make to what Alan just said?
Well, that's the proof positive that they are not fleeing for their lives, which is why for asylum, you either have to apply in your home country or you apply in the first country you come to. All of the Mexican protesters, and by the way, I guess it's fun needling the Mexicans for being hypocrites on illegal immigration, but I don't really care what Mexico's policy is. This is our country. Our policy should be what Donald Trump ran on. We're trying to run a country here. It isn't an international lounge at JFK. But you have to apply either to in the country you're in or the first country you come to.
That's just factually not correct. Please stop saying that. You're not an immigration lawyer.
Well, Alan, but why aren't these migrants doing it the right way? Why aren't they going to ports of authority? Why do you see some of them breaking the law and illegally crossing the border? If they truly have a credible fear threshold that is being met, why not just do it the right way?
Okay, well, let's just correct the record, first of all. You can't apply for asylum in your home country. That doesn't work that way. There is a rule you can, of course, apply to the first country in which you enter.
Of course, are seeing people who are not doing it the correct way or illegally crossing the border. That's a fact.
Let me finish. And Mexico, over the course of the last couple of months, has accepted more immigrants than they have in the past. They've actually stepped up the numbers of actually integrating people into society more than the United States has. So all those things combined with people who are fleeing for their lives, coming thousands of miles, they don't know where the port of entry is, right? If you've never been to a city before, you don't know where the port is. And continually, this administration has made it hard for individuals who do appear at the port. As you have seen on Tuesday, when the president closed down the port for no reason at all but to others send fear, and then only allowing a couple of families in at a time. So therefore, this concept of them crossing the border illegally or them being illegal or them being illegal aliens when they're not even in the country, really, we should stop saying that, right? And so the law allows, the Constitution allows, through the Administration Act, that doesn't matter how they enter the country between ports, which we heard from the Ninth Circuit, they're still allowed to apply for asylum. And if we want to change that, we should change Congress.
Well, the laws are also being exploited. We know that as a fact. You have 80% of these individuals passing their initial threshold with immigration officials, and then only 20% are actually granted asylum in immigration court. So that is also a fact. And I want to get your take on what Chief Justice Roberts recently said in criticizing President Trump and going after the Ninth Circuit, saying we do not have Obama judges or Trump judges, Bush judges or Clinton judges. What we have is an extraordinary group of dedicated judges. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I warned the country about Justice Roberts, thought he was a mistake. The one thing I will definitely give President Trump credit for is appointing justices like Kavanaugh and not Harriet Miers and Justice Roberts. I don't know why he's jumping into this. I have a lot of complaints with Trump. That tweet was absolutely right. I'm glad he's appointing judges that are enforcing the law. And yes, the law is you seek asylum in the first country you get to. You are, by definition, not fleeing for your life when you are trekking through thousands of miles of other countries. And, oh, well, welfare isn't good enough here in Mexico. I think I'll keep going. The reason they keep going to the U.S. and the reason it makes a difference where we set up the troops, they should be, as I said, a few yards into Mexico, is once a non-Mexican steps on U.S. soil, we can't turn them away. The idea was to stop human smuggling when, in fact, it's done exactly the opposite. It's creating human smuggling. So Mexicans, we can turn away at the border if we catch them. That's why we want it all. Anyone who is a non-Mexican who has just walked through this enormous country, not fleeing for their lives, looking for better welfare, once they step on U.S. soil, we can't just send them home. We have to give them hearings. The hearings go on and on. They just escape into the country, and there you are.
All right. Well, thank you, Ann. Alan, appreciate it. All right. Well, coming up, shocking admissions from college students heading home for the holidays. Take a listen to this.
There's definitely a racial history or a racist history to Thanksgiving.
My panel is here to respond to that, plus a campus crusade against Chick-fil-A after the break. Stay tuned. Reform shows students from the University of Oregon saying that the holiday is a racist celebration of ongoing genocide. Take a look.
There's definitely a racial history or a racist history to Thanksgiving.
There are racist aspects of its history, definitely.
We're celebrating taking away land from natives.
Okay.
It's pretty racist.
And that's not the only school speaking out. Daily Caller went to American University, and here's what those students had to say.
It's a genocidal holiday, so yes.
Yes.
I guess if you think about it, yeah, it kind of is, because we're celebrating, like, taking over people's land. Kind of. Yeah.
I think there's elements of that in the holiday.
I would say yes.
Here to react to this is Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA, Horace Cooper, co-chair of Project 21, and Kathy Aru, the publisher of Catalina magazine. Kathy, I'm going to start with you. Do you agree with those students? Is Thanksgiving racist?
I agree that they believe it is racist, and there are a group of Native American. Well, a movie came out, the Addams Family movie came out, and it did make that point that this is a holiday that celebrates the genocide of the Native American people. And then every year since the 70s, there's been a Red Power movement on Alcatraz with Native Americans fighting Thanksgiving, calling it Un-Thanksgiving Day. So there are a group of people who do believe it is a racist holiday.
Charlie, I see you shaking your head. What do you think of that?
I mean, and Kathy, it takes an unbelievable amount of intellectual effort for you to be able to believe that, because there's no way you could think that's true. I mean, people are not gathering around. There's people are not gathering around their dinner tables tomorrow, thanking and celebrating genocide. I mean, Thanksgiving is a uniquely American holiday because we take pause and we say, thank you, God, and we take for the amazing abundance we have in this country, thanks to the freedoms and liberties that only the system that we enjoy today has made possible. Look, it's a day of gratitude. It's a day of reflection. And look, this is what I fight every single day on these college campuses, Lisa, is you have these group of professor elites that teach such a misrepresentation of American history. They don't teach the founding ideas. They don't teach history. And this is what you have. You have the most luxurious generation in American history that has the highest standard of living imaginable, thinking that Thanksgiving is now a racist celebration and holiday. Complete misrepresentation of reality, and it's too bad because we have a whole generation of which that I'm a member of that does not understand that we do live in the greatest country ever to exist.
Well, and Horace, what do you make of this? I don't know about you, but I always just look at Thanksgiving as a day to give thanks, to be with my family. I have a new baby niece, so looking forward to spending time with her. I mean, what do you make of this?
It's really sad when you hear people that live in a country where they are blessed in so many special ways. And it's a time that we would normally think of as exactly as you said, let's see family, let's see our loved ones, let's take some time and be thankful for the great things that are going on. In fact, it's even a time to reach out to those who are not doing so well. What it's not a time to do is to, which is weird, this idea that people are sitting around gloating in some way, or that people are wondering about what happened 250, 350 years ago to which group and that kind of thing. This is uniquely a time where our country acknowledges how appreciative we are with the things that have been accomplished in our lives and in our country. This is what Thanksgiving is about.
All right, well, I want to get to another topic about Chick-fil-A. So I think we can all agree that Chick-fil-A has some pretty amazing sandwiches. I'm sure you guys agree with that. Well, the students at New Jersey's Rider University think so too. So they actually voted to bring the chain to campus, to their school. But the school quickly shot down that idea, and they said in an email to students that they wanted to promote inclusion for all. And Chick-fil-A's corporate values have not sufficiently progressed enough to align with those of Rider. So, Horace, is excluding Chick-fil-A really the best way to bring inclusion?
Well, absolutely not. In fact, what we're seeing at a university when it does something